This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. I'm here with Robert Tum, and
Hi.
He's here with...
Hi, Elizabeth. Liz Starkey.
And we are so happy to be here today on this lovely, newly scheduled radio program. We've moved to Tuesdays, the second and fourth Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Right.
So we're happy to be here on this new day and this new year, and we're so glad that you are joining us.
Yeah, and as we're sitting here getting ready for the show, the thoughts that run through my mind is just the gratitude. We have a lovely setting right here where we look out our living room window and our dining room window, and we have bird feeders and all kinds of vegetation out there, and the weather's probably in the low 60s. So for those of you in the more northern climates, we're sending you lots of warmth and heat as we look outside, and gratitude at all the birds and that have joined us here on these wonderful mornings we have.
Yeah, and wow. I mean, we've had a heck of a year, 2020, and now we're stepping into a new one. I think we're stronger than ever, and we're more prepared for whatever may happen in the future. But my wish and prayer for all of you tuning in is that you're healthy, that you have cultivated a deeper connection to your heart, that healing happens for you on all the pains and loss and confusion we've experienced in the last year, and that this year is not only better, but brighter, more beautiful, and we step into this year more empowered.
For sure, Liz, and I think there's not anybody out there that hasn't learned some lessons in, taking things for granted, that everything's always smooth and nice, and people play nice, and there's always light energy out there, and we found that there's can be confusion and anger and frustration. And sometimes with this stuff going on, we've learned to kind of consolidate ourselves, our energies, our thoughts, our movements, and just look at things a little bit differently. I know I certainly do. Absolutely.
It's hard not to. I mean, everything's changed.
Well, you either make a choice of making the best of it, staying positive, and taking the action you need to help the planet turn things around, or you get into a state of despair and uncertainty that just kind of digs a deeper hole. And all of us have to work on that and be aware that, hey, we are each empowered to manage that, to learn how to manage it one little baby step at a time. Sometimes it may be just stepping outside and hugging a tree, and other times it may be just doing something positive for somebody else, or even for yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, Robert, because something that I want to talk about today with everyone, with you, is a topic to empower you and to get you having a bit of a perspective shift. And maybe the things that we talk about will trigger you or scare you in some sense, or help you decide that we have absolutely lost our mind. And, for that, I say, if we say one sentence that sticks, that feels good, and the rest doesn't hit for you, leave what doesn't stick and take what does. And if you're along for the ride for 30 minutes and then we lose you on the last 15, that's good too. Just be open and know that right now there are divine beings surrounding you, cranking up your brightness, your light quotient, if you will, and preparing you to receive whatever's about to come out of our mouths.
Yeah, and it's difficult for everyone. I have people that, that I work with. We have people on programs that are, it may be a 1 week program or a monthly program. program, ongoing support, to where Liz and I are working on their energies just about daily, doing alignments, grounding them, helping make sure they're clear. And they're asking sometimes for this magic beam. How do you do that? How can we do it? How do we, manage our own energies? And we have a lot of protocols that are complex and take some time to learn, that you have to do it in sequence and step by step and growth. But the bottom line is we all have things that we're empowered and able to do to, can be something as simple as some basic yoga poses, watch our diet, watch our vitamins, watch what shows we watch and things that we listen to, who we listen to. Do we have people in our lives that are always negative and oh, woe is me? As we grow spiritually, sometimes we have to separate ourselves from others. Doesn't mean we don't love them and care about them, but sometimes we step away from things and people and places that make it more difficult for us to stay grounded and positive. There's decisions, no matter how many tools we have or what kind of level of accomplishments we've made spiritually or consciousness we've grown, we have to do it all the time. Liz and I work on our energies constantly, making fine-tuning alignments of our chakras and our grounding and keeping our field clear and our energies pulled closer to our physical. Those are kind of things that we're responsible for, that helps us manage our energies and be able to be helpful to others.
Absolutely. And so right now we are extending the protections we use, the protective bubbles. And those of you who are listening, if you want a visual, it's coming down from the sky now and completely enveloping you, starting at the crown, through the root chakra, all over your physical body, and beyond. And so with those protections, which are now in place, let's get to going. You ready?
Absolutely.
All right. So what I want to talk about today is a concept that some of you may be familiar with. Some of you may have never thought about it before. And some of you might be a little alarmed at the things we're talking about, but that's okay. It's okay to get shook every once in a while. And the concept that I'm referring to is the idea, the what if Earth and the planet and society is an energy farm. And I'm not talking about solar energy, which is great, or hydro energy. I'm talking about a matrix that is used to manipulate and perpetuate negative energy to feed beings that feed off of negative energy. Whoa, right? I mean, that's not how we've been taught to believe, especially if we've grown up in some sort of religious system or spiritual world. We think, oh, this is God's world. God made everything. How could that possibly be true if God made the planet, the birds, the flowers, the people, right? Well, I want to encourage you to think back on all your sacred texts from the many, many, many thousands of years. And that's every religion. Every religion talks about this. Every spiritual path talks about this, and that is the darkness. In order to have light, you must have darkness. In order to have love, you must have hate. We have to have the yin and yang in order to grow, in order to recognize, and in order to experience all that is. And I'm not saying this to elicit fear, not in any means. I don't think I'm coming across as being scared and hell and brimstone. It's just an awareness that we need, as a human race, we need to get a little more used to, because if we want to save the planet, we have to do it. We can't expect politicians or religious leaders or celebrities to save us. I mean, that's not happening. It is up to us on an individual level.
Yeah, in fact, if you look at all the advice that's coming along out there by celebrities and by our newscasters and by everything out there, our politicians, most of their advice is worthless, and this is where we talk about discernment in our programs and in our classes, and as we work with individuals, is how do we figure out what's true, what's not true, what's connected to the light, and what's not connected to the light. I mean, I've had many discussions with people that are fairly new on the path, and they're oh, I'm so connected to the light, and I'm so highly conscious, I don't need protections. And I'm like, well, tell me how you know you're connected to the light. Well, I just know. Well, everything that we teach and practice is actually measurable. We have to be very objective when we look at things and not get into the la land of, we think because something sounds good or it has a pretty picture on Facebook. I mean, look at Facebook and all the graphics that are out there sometimes that represent some higher consciousness, but just because the picture's pretty and some great colors in it doesn't mean that it is of higher consciousness. There can be all kinds of things embedded in it that may be negative, or it's not necessarily a true representation. We have to learn to be objective. We have to learn to discern. And part of that is our day-to-day actions and thoughts and what we connect to that we all have the capability of managing.
Well said, Robert. And, okay, so let's just talk about what I mean by unseen forces, if you will, feeding off of negative energies. Well, what are negative energies? Chaos, fear, anger, anxiety, screaming, yelling, finger pointing, blaming. We're all very used to these ideas, maybe too used to them, because it's perpetuated every minute of every day in our daily lives. It's become kind of commonplace. But let's talk about the flip side of that coin, the positive aspects. And I'm talking peace. I'm talking unity. I'm talking about being seen and understood. I'm talking about compassion and passion and love. So if there's beings that feed off of negative energies, then surely there's beings that feed off of positive energies, right? I mean, if it works one way, it's going to work the other way. So who might be those that feed off of peace and love and compassion and unity? Well, we do. Humans do. Initially, at the very beginning of being a human, that's what we do. That's what we feed off of. That's what we need. And unfortunately, through the process of being welcomed into society and our various institutions like schools and religions and government, etc., we are being rewired to actually respond to negative energies, to perpetuate more negative energies. And unfortunately, I think that most people today experience more negative energies in their personal field and the areas around them than they do positive. And that breaks my heart, because it's not supposed to be this way.
Well, for sure, Liz. And, it's all around us, and we have to be selective. I think my secret to staying positive, and I witness what you do every day, and you're so very, very good at it. You are disciplined at what you do in the mornings and how you spend your day and what you tune into. And I do that to a different degree than you do, but I have to be really selective of what I listen to, what I hear, what I do. And it's different for each one of us. I mean, as I work with my clients and I tune into them, each one requires a little bit different bit of advice. I myself is included in that. I have to watch what I eat. I have to watch my H2O intake. I take certain herbs and supplements to make sure my brain stays wired as it should, to make sure all the electrons and dendrites and all those things are functioning properly. Every little bit, especially in these days when things are so sensitive, every little small thing is important that you can do to collectively keep your consciousness high and yourself light. And the example of sitting here watching the birds at the feeder, wow, that just absolutely helps me keep it at a level of being grounded and see the delight in the birds out there, that they've got some seeds and some food that nourishes them, that they seem happy and they seem safe and secure. Well, tuning into that energy alone helps me stay grounded and focused on the importance of sometimes the small things.
Absolutely.
Baby steps, like they say in What About Bob, my favorite movie.
Well, and you touched on something interesting, and I appreciate your kind words and your recognition of the work that I do every day, because it's taken me a long time to get to this point, and it hasn't been easy, and I haven't necessarily always been nice to myself, but I have always been my greatest guinea pig. I'm probably never going to speak to you about something unless I've experienced it, because if I don't know, if I haven't really like dug my hands deep into the mud, I don't feel like I can honestly come talk to you about it, with experience. So I am my best guinea pig, and I encourage you to be that same for you, because at the end of the day, we're also caught up in our own dramas and our own stories. We have a really hard time helping others. So if you can invest in yourself, your life is going to change. And I know that I've experienced that firsthand, and my life is better than ever because I've put a little blood, sweat, and tears into making my experience better. So today I'm extending an opportunity for an experiment for you to experience what we're talking about, aka Earth as an energy farm.
Absolutely.
And go ahead.
No, it's a good topic, Liz. And the more we're aware of the influences around us, and we're not, like Liz mentioned earlier, this is not about trying to make anybody afraid. We don't want anybody being afraid of any energies, because that's self-defeating. I mean, we don't. Fear attracts more of the same. We want to try to do the things that every day that keep us in a positive framework in spite of anything going on around us, and take that action to stay positive, because as we hold the light and the higher consciousness, it does help with everybody else that's trying to do the same thing as part of that collective consciousness.
Absolutely. And I think what you're saying, well, one thing that I'm getting from what you're saying is awareness is key. And I've worked myself out of some pretty deep holes that I dug for myself. And I'm grateful for those holes, because it has shaped me to be the person that I am. And I can relate to a whole bunch of people because of the situations and experiences I have personally created for myself. I have this whole file system that just flew through my mind of things that I have overcome. And it all starts with an awareness that, hey, maybe drinking every day doesn't actually make me feel as good as I think it does. Maybe eating this type of food on a regular basis actually causes me to be a little foggy in my brain, or not have complete clarity about what to do, or maybe I'm sleepier on a regular basis because of the food I'm putting into my body. The list goes on.
That's a good point, Liz. Make a list, right?
Make a list, sure. But just be aware. Just
right.
Start when that little drop of awareness, I'll spoiler alert, one little drop of awareness isn't going to cause you to change your life, but it's going to continue to drop. If you want it, if you're receptive, if you're seeing it, if you're open to it, and then that drop will turn into trickle, and it will turn into a downpour, and you will get to a point when you realize, you know what? I'm tired of making the same decisions. I want to change. And when you make that decision, the divine pours in. They've been waiting for this. And it's like a tidal wave that pushes you to a new direction, a new level, a new awareness, a new insight. And it is marvelous. And so today, this experiment that I'm asking you to do is simply be aware. And
yeah, exactly. This is law of attraction stuff. I mean, as we experiment with our own lives and find that little technique or that little process or that little thought change that we do, and what it can do to change our overall outlook and how we deal and look at things, it builds on itself over time. It's not instant. Sometimes for some people it is. For most of us, it takes work and it takes conscious awareness that we got to work on it every day and not let it snowball into something negative and dark again. But if it does, so what? Just start all over again. Just keep doing it and stay positive and stay diligent and keep working at it. And you will build that connection, that light quotient. You will build that quotient to higher consciousness. And if people ask me, what's this magic bean? They don't say magic bean, but give me this technique that does so I can do what you can do. Just, hey, snap my fingers and everything is healed and goes away. Well, there's no energy work that works like that. It takes work. It takes self-awareness. It takes introspection of being able to look at each one of our thoughts and what did we just do to trigger that. And then when things sometimes get out of kilter, don't beat yourself up. Just go back to basics and start all over again, over and over if you need to.
Absolutely. Well, Robert, let's take a quick break,
Okay.
and then I've got some interesting ideas to share.
Sounds good to me.
All right, we'll see you back here in 30 to 60 seconds.
The staff at Spiritual Energy Dynamics would like you to ponder on the concept of spiritual hygiene. Your personal routines likely include bathing, brushing your teeth, having regular dentist and doctor checkups. You keep your home clean, maintain your car, run virus scans on your computer. You deserve to have your spiritual energies cleaned and realigned as well. Your energy field is a sensitive and complex instrument. You are constantly being bombarded by unseen influences, discordant energies, and many types of negative interference. As these accumulate, they negatively impact on your overall well-being in many ways. If you would like to learn more and schedule a comprehensive evaluation of your energy field, contact Robert or Liz. Go to roberttum.com. That's Robert Tumm, TUMM.com. Mention this ad for a $50 discount on our program.
All right, welcome back. I'm Liz Starkey here with Mr.
Robert Tumm.
And today we're talking about the concept of Earth being an energy farm. And what I mean by that is that we are being manipulated and triggered to have negative emotions, to create more negative emotions. And for some of you, that's going to click right away, and others, that's completely foreign to them. So let's do an experiment. And y'all can join in right now and participate. Maybe you want to wait till a little bit later this evening. It's totally up to you. It's not going to take long. All I want you to do, we all get information from a screen at some point. And maybe there are some of us who still read newspapers, but it's the same idea behind that. We are being fed information to cause a reaction. And I'm not going to talk anymore about it because I learned from experience. And so I want you to experience this yourself. So grab your phone, turn on your computer, whatever it is you want to do, and find any news source. Any news source. Doesn't matter if it's left-leaning, right-leaning. It could be from 20 years ago. It doesn't matter what the article is. But I want you, before you start reading, check in and make a note of how you feel right now. Maybe you feel good about how your morning's gone. Maybe you're feeling a little bit anxious about your giant to-do list that keeps growing. Maybe you're just starting out your day, having your first cup of coffee or tea. Just check in. How are you doing? And then I want you to read that article. And as you're reading, if you can also develop a watcher self, watch your emotions. Watch how your mind and your thought changes. Watch how your physical body reacts to what you're reading. Does your heart rate spike? Do you start to sweat? Do you notice a temperature change? And all I want you to do is experience that. This doesn't even have to be news. This could be signing on to Facebook or Instagram and spending 2 minutes scrolling. And once you've done that, check in again. How do you feel now? Do you feel better? Do you feel a sense of peace and calmness? Do you feel tranquil? Do you feel angry? Are you disgusted at the idea of X, Y, and Z? Did you just lose respect for someone you've known for a very long time because of their opinions they're posting on Facebook? Just observe it. You don't have to judge it. You don't have to feel any type of way. Just become aware. Once you've done that, I want you to think about how often you are going to some sort of screen or source of information to get your fix. I watched this in myself. Today, I've made a point to not check my phone first thing in the morning, to get on the various websites to check for information, to check my email. I made a point to not do that today because of what we're talking about. And I've had a great morning thus far. I'm balanced, I'm chilling, I feel good. And that is not always the case, because oftentimes the first thing I do in the morning is check my phone. What has happened over the last 8 hours that I've missed out on, that I need to know right now? And I'm asking you to think that maybe we don't need to tune into this every day.
Absolutely. And, we are going to avoid on this program talking politics and things like that. That's not a subject we feel like we need to talk about or go there, because everybody has their opinion. But I want to say one thing about social media and mainstream media. Be careful, beware, be discerning, because they are manipulating and controlling what they put out there. Why do you think they're censoring things that are out there? Why do you think they're censoring opposing opinions and viewpoints and trying to just put out propaganda? So just make sure that this is part, as you tune into things, that you select what makes you feel better. Trust your own instincts. What feels like it makes you, like Liz talks, do you feel like you're vibrating higher, or you feel a little bit of a headache? Do you feel some nausea? That's one of the signs that I get very early on. If I'm looking at something that is just not truthful or not of a higher integrity or connected to the light, I can start getting a headache. I can start getting nauseous. I start getting ungrounded. Then I start getting angry. And then I know I got to pause and go, listen, I've got to step aside and go rebalance my energies, go work on my chakras, work on the grounding aspect. So as Liz is recommending here, be aware of your thoughts and your feelings as you start your day, and make that decision to do some things that are going to build that light quotient to a higher vibration. And if you're something you're doing that starts making you feel bad or angry, maybe step away from it.
Absolutely, Robert. So, I grew up in the Midwest. Every night, I think at 6 or 6:30, we'd sit down and watch the news as a family. And it was fear. It was hell and brimstone. It was the world's ending. It was, you need to do this, you need to do that. And the very, very last segment, and this is probably still true today, I don't watch the news. The very last segment of the nightly news was a positive story of love and unity and community. And it's fascinating, because if you think about it, if you have 28 minutes of bad vibes being thrown at you into your energy field, but the very last story is love and peace and all is good, you walk away feeling good. But the reality is, if you could look at the energy field the way we look at it, you picked up a whole bunch of stuff. And if you go to bed at night and you haven't done anything to get that out of your field, you're going to have bad dreams. You're going to wake up with anxiety. You're going to create these negative thought forms that's going to influence your life in a not good way. And I mean, it's been happening for a very long time, and it's being directed at our elderly. It's being directed at the middle class. It's being directed at our children. So, I just asked you to go read a news story and check in with how you feel. Go watch a Disney movie. Anytime in the last 20 years, sit down and watch a Disney movie that was created for our children, and keep note of the things that you're feeling. I do this. I like I said, I'm my greatest guinea pig, and I do this, and it is terrifying what happens when you watch something that is catered to our children. Our children are being targeted. It's wild. It's depressing. And it's all bubbling up for me right now because this is something I'm very, very passionate about. Look at what so much of information is being shared now on social media by memes or by Twitter posts or screenshots of one thing one person said. And we're either canceling that person totally, so we're discrediting everything, all the 40, 50, 60 years of that individual's life because of one statement. Therefore, we've totally gotten away from this concept of compassion and forgiveness. And we are continuing to share and spread something that is pointing the finger at the other party. Unfortunately, we have a two-tiered political system, and there's this idea that you're either one or the other, and there's no Venn diagram in the middle, which is bullshit. But everyone's pointing fingers at everyone else, and we're sharing memes, and we're, getting together with our team and our side, and we're spreading hate and division and misinformation, and it's not good. It doesn't feel good. And at the end of the day, you might feel good because you got your kick in or your punch in, but you don't feel good. And if you were to honestly look at yourself and check in right now, you would recognize that.
Right. And, Liz, this is what you're talking about as an energy farm. I mean, it can be literally looked at that. I mean, this is what the darkness wants us to be. They want us to be in turmoil. They want us to, be angry, want us to be miserable because they actually feed of it. When I say they, we've got a lot of different levels of things we teach at SED and things we don't even talk about or mention any kind of names and types and modalities, but we're able to measure. I mean, that's how we talk about discernment. We know when there's a light quotient that's very nicely vibrating. We know when something's connected to the dark. You can't hide it. You can't pretend. You can't tell us some kind of story and say, yeah, I'm connected to the light. We can look at energies and figure it out. Okay. It's very, very easy and straightforward in our modality. My point being is that when we look at this, we know that what can continue to perpetuate a lower vibration. And as we look at the various degrees of darkness, we see a whole hierarchy within that of different types of entities and beings, of lower level negative beings and that feed off of that. And depending on their degree of connected to the darkness, the more tricks they have up their sleeve to try to manipulate us. Some of the stuff is just basic, just feeding off the darkness. Others a little bit more manipulative. On the other side of things, we have the angels and the masters and the whole David kingdom and the whole hierarchy of light beings that we try to tap into. And so this is where it's important that Liz is talking about of how we start our day. How do we manage it? Or do we feel a headache or a throat pressure or something like that? That's not a sign of being totally connected to the light. So you take some action until so that opens back up like that. Having that cell phone signal to divine. Can you hear more clearly? Is there less interference? Do you feel better when you're taking that action? And so there's not that magic bean per se. Each one of us is trying to develop that unique connection to the light. And what is your methodology personally for getting there? Is it doing yoga? Is it drinking, a nice glass of water in the morning? Is it doing something, reading an inspirational? My grandmother was awesome in the sense that she always did little things. For her, it was a Bible verse. She might write it out. It was a prayer. It might have been flowers at breakfast with some homemade jam and bread and the smells of the kitchen. It may have been a little song she was singing, but it was stuff that helped not only get her day started beautifully, but if you were around her, you couldn't help but being positive just because of the little things she did. And all of us need to work on that. I have to work on it every single day. It is, again, not that magic bean of all of a sudden, hey, being bright and positive. It takes that getting into that mode. And some of you out there are really, really good at that. and you can be an inspiration and spread that joy and light out there and share with people how to do that. That's part of your responsibility, actually.
Well, absolutely. And think about it. Okay, so we're talking about opposites, light and dark, etc. If we as a human race came together, the 99% or whatever, we could do whatever it is that we needed to make happen. Free energy, all of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs met for every single person, right? We can, just a handful of us being empowered is extremely powerful. Then you multiply that by thousands, millions, billions. I mean, it's insane what we could do if we all did this, if we all came together, if we met at the round table and had peaceful discussions, because at the end of the day, we'd realize that we're all suffering from the very same things. And if those needs could be met, 75% of our issues would be boom out the window. So if these powers that be, these celebrities or these politicians or these religious leaders or whomever it is, whoever really cared about our well-being, don't you think there would be a 24-hour good news network where we're watching all the good things that are happening in the world? Why is that not a thing, Robert?
Well, it's part of that energy farm you're talking about that wants to perpetuate the negativity. And our own egos and our own subconscious mind is a contributor to that, because our own subconscious sometimes wants to sabotage our own goodwill and good being of intent to grow into a higher consciousness.
Absolutely. And Robert, you mentioned the people that we're talking to who are good to be around 99.9% of the time, who have a great perspective, who can stay balanced. I know I'm thinking of about a handful of those people, and all of those people have one thing in common. Care to guess what that is, my dear?
Happiness.
They're not tuned into media all the time. They are not a part of Facebook. They are not have the TV on all day watching CNN or MSN or Fox News, whatever it is. They aren't being programmed and manipulated by this force that we're all plugging into on a regular basis. And so you might say, well, they are irresponsible. They are not involved in politics, and their vote counts, and they're just wasting it. Is it such a bad thing to be quote unquote out of the loop? Is it so important to know what's going on in Kentucky or the state of Washington or this little corner of Arizona? Is it so important for me right here, right now, to know what's going on all over the world when I've got a plate full of problems of my own? How really, as an individual, am I supposed to deal with this? And the point is, you aren't. You're supposed to get so confused, so angry, so upset, so depressed that you stay stuck in this lower energetic state so you don't become empowered, so the light bulb doesn't come on, so you don't love your neighbor. Because when we love each other, we're in control. We can change not only our county or our city or our state, our nation, our planet, we can change the cosmos. And that's what I'm all about. I'm all about kindness. And I'm all about kindness to self first. Because when we can start being kind and loving ourselves, it makes loving other people that much easier. And it's hard to do because we've been programmed to hate ourselves. Every time we get on social media, we see this beautiful woman who we can never be, and we feel shitty about ourselves. And that's true for men, and that's true for athletic aspects. I mean, it's true all across the board. And I just want people to start recognizing that there is a force all around us that wants you to think that you are not enough.
This is why we have to choose what influences us and make those decisions every day. And yeah, there are techniques that can clear energies. This is what Liz and I do we keep ourselves clear, work on ourselves, and we work with clients to make sure that as we do a scan of the energy field, what's going on out there? Is some entity attached to us of some type? Is there chakra blocks? Is there misalignments? Is there some kind of discordant energies? And sometimes we need some help of somebody else to look in and get it cleared so you can get back to ground zero, start feeling good, and then start building your own technique and connection and habits of staying positive. So we're going to talk more about that after this next break. Thank you for tuning in. I feel everybody's energies, and I know you're listening in. I can feel it. And after the break here, we're going to get back into, what can we do differently to manage that.
Spiritual energy dynamics is the new paradigm in metaphysical philosophy. Did you know that your vibrational consciousness is actually measurable? Would you like a snapshot of your current energy configuration relative to your potential? This information can provide you a roadmap in terms of your unique pathway for spiritual growth. If you would like more information, go to roberttum.com. That's Robert Tumm, TUMM.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back for the last segment of the program today. And we're going to get into looking at the consciousness of things that we can do to make ourselves feel better. One of the influences, Liz will tell you, that I absolutely love going to a place. It's called, in the Southeast, it's a place called a Waffle House. I mean, you might have, I know when I lived in Boston, there's little local shops, there was Dunkin' Donuts everywhere. But you find a place, the Waffle House is especially unique in that you walk in there and there's people that may have been working a double shift, been on their feet, and this greasy spoon and noisy plates clanging and, hash brown smothered and covered, all good. But every time you walk in, there's this little old lady that reminds you of a grandma that goes, "Hey, good morning, hello." And for the influence it has on me, it's like, wow. Here's a lady that, or it doesn't have to be it could be the cook, or it could be anybody there, but they're staying positive as best they can. And they go, "Have you had a good day so far? What can I fix for you?" And I'm like, wow, here's a person that's probably been working 6, 8, 10 hours, and they can still be positive. They can legitimately feel it in their voice and their energies that they are trying to be a positive influence in that point of light. They may never even have heard of yoga. They may not burn incense. They may not have diffusers going. They may not be meditating. But you know what? They're that point of light. And it's that simple to the fact that if we can hold that energy that has an influence for others, then we can build on that and expand into being more of a positive influence.
Absolutely. And Robert, for me, and this is the second part of the experiment that we're running, that if you choose to participate, you've already maybe done the first half, or you're planning on it, where you're monitoring how you feel before, during, and after reading any sort of information from a screen. Now I want you to go outside. Don't bring your phone with you. Don't listen to music. Go out in nature and just be. And 10 minutes would be great. 30 minutes would be great. I know it's probably cold most places, and I hate the cold, so that would be difficult for me. But go out and be with nature, and check in with yourself and see how you feel. And listen for the birds. Look at the different colors, or hear the crunchiness of the leaves, or feel the snow falling on your body, and really become part and tuned in with Mother Earth and nature and all that surround us.
Absolutely. I so agree with that, Liz, and that's where we talk about those baby steps of one step at a time. What can we do? There's all kinds of emotional scales out there. There's the chart of emotions. There's different scales like that. But, if you find out where you are, you can look these up and find out where you are. And wherever you are, if you're depressed, if you're frustrated, if you're angry, just try to move up a step. Sometimes being angry can motivate you to taking some kind of action, like, I'm going to change the way I do things starting right now. And it motivates you to take that next step of, like, I'm going to start doing yoga every morning. I'm going to read some positive inspirational verse in a poem or some inspirational book that makes me feel good. Somebody that is an inspiration to me. And every one of us has to find that point of inspiration. Sometimes it's like just slowing down a little bit, not trying so hard, not trying to achieve a level that maybe that you think is beyond your reach or beyond where you are as far as consciousness goes. Give up on that trying so hard, because it's not a contest, okay? We all reach that level of the best we can be, and it doesn't matter if somebody else is doing it the same way or not. Find out what works for you. Combine processes. If it's some kind of Lord's Prayer, or if it's burning a candle or whatever, find what works for you and start building on that. Build a little routine that you may modify and change along the way, but all of it designed to change how you feel and how you think. And if there's something that you're doing that interferes with that, then maybe change what you're doing, change that thing that drags you into a level of a lower vibration.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what we're asking you to do as far as monitoring yourself is we're asking you to rise a bit above of the program of the news or what have you, and just start observing yourself. And another way you can do this, read any headline that comes across your newsfeed, right? And so there's a formula there. So what I want you to do is switch out the variables with something you're really passionate about. Say you're like really, really into pickles, right? So I know it's obscure, but I'm trying to remain neutral and not get too far into the heat and the chaos that is our nation currently. Replace what is going on in that article with pickles. And if there's a group of people who are discriminating against pickles, you'll have an issue with it. But now switch that pickle out with fruit. Bananas. So is it okay for one side to say something about another side? We're all doing the same thing to each other. It's all the same thing, designed and created to create this division. So I want you to start critically thinking about the information you're receiving and switch out your beliefs with their beliefs and see if you're okay with what's happening to that person or that group or that ideology. And if you're not, then it's high time for you to take some time and think about maybe what's going on in your world and how you can do a better job of perpetuating love and peace and communication and health and well-being and kumbaya and all that hippie stuff that I am all about, versus trying to get your point across and yelling at each other from across the dinner table.
Well, sometimes the absurdity of a funny thought, like thinking of a banana or a pickle or something like that, if it can lighten up the mood and get you giggling and laughing at yourself a little bit, guess what? You started to turn things around.
So I've got one thing, maybe two things that I want to throw in here. And thank you for that. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just super excited right now. Okay, so one thing that I do on a regular basis is something called A Course in Miracles. And this just came up this morning, so I want to read this to you. Robert, do you want to read this?
No, please.
Okay. The world I see is hardly the representation of loving thoughts. It is a picture of attack on everything by everything. It is anything but a reflection of the love of God. It is my own attack thoughts that give rise to this picture. My loving thoughts will save me from this perception of the world and give me the peace God intended me to have. And so if I were to summarize that in my own words, when we can start to take off our hate and division glasses and seeing the world through love and peace, this miraculous thing happens. And we start seeing more loving people, more kindness, more generosity. And I'll tell you what's happening. We're raising our vibration, and we're actually entering into a new earth, a higher dimension that's happening on the same level, on the same time and space we exist in now, but it's a better version. It's heaven on earth. It's a higher dimension or a parallel universe, whatever you want to label it as. We can get there, and we can bring others along, and we can create heaven on earth by being a little nicer and loving each other a little bit harder and seeking to find similarities versus dividing ourselves by our differences. And when we can do that within our own circle, our life changes. And then it spreads like this beautiful blanket of loving, warm energy. And it starts affecting people. Even the most curmudgeon of people in our world can be impacted by just a little drop of love. And we can do that. And it is our job to do that. It's how we are going to save ourselves and save humanity. And I challenge you to start looking hard at the things you're posting on social media, at the stuff you're putting into your body, your emotional, your mental, your physical, your spiritual. And maybe it's time to take a break. Because I know that when I step away, those are my best days. That's when I feel most connected, most in tune, most in touch, and the clearest. And it's okay to not be receiving information on a regular basis. It's okay to not know what's going on in the world 24/7. We're not designed to do that. We've got our own problems we're dealing with. So maybe step away and start focusing on you a little bit more and start loving your neighbor a little bit more. It's miraculous, and it's right here to be held in our hands if we just changed our dial a little bit and get more focused on the love factor versus the fear factor.
Well said, Liz. That's kind of hard to follow. That's really inspirational.
I have something you can read in the last minute.
Are we in the last minute already?
We got 4 minutes left.
4 minutes.
Right there, that highlighted
All right. Part. News never changes much. It's just the same things happening to different people. I would rather experience things happening to me than read about them happening to others. I am my own newspaper and my own radio. I honestly don't believe that man was meant to know everything going on in the world all at the same time. The man turns on the TV and all those commentators bombard him with the local and national and international news. The newspapers do the same thing, and the poor guy with all the immediate problems of his own life is burdened with those of the whole world. Well said.
Yeah, that's from a book called One Man's Wilderness, An Alaskan Odyssey by Keith Sam. I really recommend reading it. It's a really great jumpstart on what you can do to save your mental health and well-being. And there's another book that I think is the first book that got me thinking about the world as an energy farm, and it's called The Human Primer by James Taylor. Not our loving James Taylor behind the guitar. I'm sure it's some other dude, but it's called The Human Primer. It's a funny little book, interesting book. It's worth checking out. So I've had a great time today.
You've done a great job. Very inspirational words and thoughts on really how to look at things a bit differently with a higher perspective, Liz. Thank you for that inspiration, and I'm glad to be a participant this morning.
Well, it's been lovely meeting with all of you, bringing together the minds. And you're right, Robert, I feel it too. I feel the collective energy that's been percolating in the last 45, 50 minutes, and big things can happen. And wherever you are in your community, you can be that bright light that makes things brighter and brighter.
Well, I recommend anybody that is tuning in here that's looking for a connection of somebody to help manage your energies, give you advice, take a look at what's going on in your world. Liz Starkey is the best at that I know. She's really good as far as just being a coach, being a mentor, being somebody that can do a scan on your energy field and be an inspiration. So, Liz, how would people get in touch with you, directly via a web link or a calendar link?
Yeah, go to lizwithwings.com. Send me an email, lizwithwings@gmail. That's LIZWITHWINGS, Liz with Wings. You can find my phone number. You can schedule a call. You can shoot me a text. However it is you want to get in touch, let's talk.
You find it very worthwhile. She's an inspiration to me, and I see the impact she has on friends and family and clients. It's quite amazing. So thanks, Liz, for sharing your time today that we can do this radio program together. A real blessing, and I like the new time change.
Me too.
I think we're a lot more energized than we are late Fridays. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate it very, very much. And with that, we're going to send you off with some very high vibes, sending your direction. So just tune into it, integrate with it. There's lots of angels and masters just surrounding you and trying to give you clarity and support. And we're putting that out there for everybody tuning in live. And if you listen to a rebroadcast, that same thing is available to you. Thank you, everybody.